The documentary Pray took top honors at the 2019 Hot Docs Festival. The TV original, which airs tonight right after this program, shines a light on the abuses of Canadian priest William Hodgson Marshall, known as Father Hod. It's a powerful film that focuses on the legal fight against the Catholic Church in Ontario by a sexual abuse survivor who demanded his day in court. With us now on how they told that story, Pray director Matt Gallagher and producer Cornelia Principe, Rod MacLeod, the plaintiff in the civil case featured in the film, Patrick McMahon, who was the first complainant against the priest that led to a criminal conviction, and lawyer Rob Talach, known as a priest hunter, who is a partner at Beckett Personal Injury Lawyers. Welcome to you all. Thank you so much for being here to talk about this, and because the audience at home hasn't had a chance to see the documentary yet, we will try to not get too much into the documentary and reveal what happens. To get us started, let's take a look at a trailer of Pray.
Hello, my name's Rob Talach. I represent the plaintiff. There were 17 individuals that you pled guilty to abuse.
Yes.
You were convicted of that along with other crimes in June of 2011.
That's right.
The plaintiff, my client, is seated here to my right. His name is Mr. Rod MacLeod. I bet some of you already have a pretty good idea what this case is about.
The documentary centers on your case, Rod, as the plaintiff, and Rob, you as the lawyer. How would you describe what this case is about without spoiling how it unfolds? Rob, I'll start with you.
Well, it's the classic tale of a Catholic youth, a boy, abused by a priest, and the church's response to that, what it did and what it didn't do. And of course, that then fast forwards to present day, where those facts go before a court here in this province.
And Rod, this documentary reveals or revisits a part of your life that was extremely painful. Why did you want to participate in making this documentary?
Well, for 55 years, I'd tried not to think of it at all, bottled it up inside of me. That was my coping mechanism. Now, coupled with that, I also believed that I was the only person who had ever been sexually abused. I didn't think about anyone else until about 50 years later. I was listening to CBC radio at night, driving my car, and I heard a program on sexual predators. And they said, these sexual predators are serial. They don't stop with one. They go one to the next, to the next, to the next. And they said, if you have been sexually abused, it's your duty to come forward and stop this serial action. And that hit me like a ton of bricks. I thought, oh my God, I'd never thought of that. And so immediately I Googled and found out that thanks to Patrick, my perpetrator was already in prison. So I thought, oh, well, that's the end of that. And then a few months later, I was watching a news broadcast and Rob Talach came on and he was saying, look, if anyone has been abused, we need you to come forward in order to put a stop to it. So that's when I got a hold of him. And when he explained to me the situation, how it's an ongoing situation, then I felt it was really my duty to come forward and to publicize this as much as possible in order to put an end to it.
When you say duty, considering what you've been through, it's such an honorable way to put yourself out there. Once you did get started, was there a part of you that you felt a little bit of fear in your story getting out there and having to relive all those other things?
Well, there was a lot of fear, not a little bit, a lot. And but see, I tried not to focus on that. I tried to focus on the fact that all these other brothers of mine had been sexually abused because of my inaction for all these years. So how can I make it up to them? Well, I can make it up to them by standing up and telling my story as fully as I possibly can.
And Patrick, as Rod mentioned, you were the first person to lay a charge against Father Hodgson Marshall. Why did you come forward?
Well, some of the reasons will be similar to what Rod's saying, but ultimately I wanted two things. One, I wanted Marshall to be exposed for what he was. I was concerned that with him getting on in age, someday I would pick up the local newspaper and see a headline on the front page saying, "Great educator has passed away," and I wanted to make sure that didn't happen. And secondly, I wanted to make attempt to hold the Basilian Order accountable, because I knew that they had moved them all over. I knew I wasn't the only one, and they've gotten away with it for 50-some, 60-some years, and it needed to be exposed.
And Cornelia, how did you and Matt get involved in documenting this journey?
The idea was really percolating for probably over 10 years. Matt grew up in Windsor and was an altar boy and comes from a very Catholic family. And so when the stories started coming out of priests that he knew that were being exposed as abusers, and even friends that he knew from school who he had found out were abused, we knew that that was a story that we should tell. We just weren't sure how to tell that story until about a year and a half ago, Matt reached out to Patrick, who's a childhood friend, and that's how it kind of steamrolled very quickly after that first phone call. And we were filming, I think, within weeks of that first phone call to Patrick. But it was probably about 10 years that we've been talking about the idea. We just weren't sure how to tell the story.
Yeah, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of discussion, but, Patrick's family and my family go way back in Windsor, Ontario, and I had lost touch with Patrick. But around 2010, I started to read about his story, and his parents reached out to me at a film festival. I was at a Windsor Film Festival 3 or 4 years ago, and they said, "You might want to talk to Patrick." And so I gave him a call, and Patrick opened me up to the world of a priest hunting lawyer and a case that was just happening. So once we had that, we sort of made the film very, very quickly.
Beyond everything falling into place the way it fell into, why did you want to make this documentary?
I wanted to make the documentary because I was curious about Patrick. Patrick did everything right. He came forward. He got the priest convicted. He launched a civil suit. He got a very handsome settlement. But at the end of the day, Patrick was still in a lot of pain, and I wanted to find out. Are we doing things properly? Is there a better way? Is there a better way that the church could be responding to this? And so that curiosity drove the documentary.
And Rob, at the beginning, we revealed your nickname, the Priest Hunter. You filed hundreds of lawsuits against the church. What's the typical trajectory of these cases?
I mean, most settle. It takes years to get to that point. But, I tell a client that walks in my door, this is going to take somewhere between 1.5 to 4 years. The closer you get to the courthouse, the longer it takes. Typically, the more money you get if you wait them out, because they're trying to wait the victims out. But I filed to date 412 lawsuits against the Catholic Church, and a handful of them have got near or into a courthouse, and the vast majority settle quietly.
412 cases, that's a lot. Why is it important for you to trial these cases?
Well, I mean, my story is I was originally going to be a soldier. I am a part-time soldier now, but, I wanted to fight evil, and I wanted to do my duty, as Rod says, and my initial experiences with the military, especially overseas, brought me to believe that, as I said in my law school essay, the pen is mightier than the sword. So I turned to a career where I could use the pen for good, and one of these cases fell into my lap, in a sense, in my first year as a lawyer, and I decided to pursue that area of law.
30 years ago this past February, an investigation into child abuse at the Mount Cashel Orphanage in St. John's was reopened after a cover-up. Beyond that case, what is the history of judgments against the church in Canada, Rob?
So Rod's case is the 13th lawsuit in Canada in which the Catholic Church went into a courtroom about the conduct of their priest. So that tells you that, you know, the vast majority are settled somewhere short of a courthouse. And, you know, Ontario has been most of these cases. There's been one in BC, one in Quebec, one in Newfoundland, one in Nova Scotia. So, you know, to get these cases into a courthouse is very difficult. Hearing the number of 13, you shouldn't say, well, this isn't a problem. The Catholic Church has hundreds of these cases. They've become very good at keeping it quiet and settling these and keeping them below the radar. So, you know, it's very important when a case goes to trial because it allows the public to see, to peer into these fact scenarios, and it allows society, especially in the case with a jury, to render judgment and say, look, we agree with the way you've done things, or we fundamentally disagree. And that's a great opportunity for someone who's felt very disenfranchised by a global corporation. The courtrooms really equalize the matter, you know? He's got a lawyer or a pair of lawyers, they've got a pair of lawyers. So, you know, I think our justice system is a great equalizer of power and privilege.
But I'm guessing you probably have had cases where it was just too much for people to push forward.
You know, I've kind of come around the bend a bit. I was very much a believer of, yes, that a lot of these, you know, this is going to be difficult on the person, and this particular plaintiff can't endure it. But, you know, I've really been eyewitness to the cathartic effect that Rod has undergone in this journey, and I'm sort of converted now to believe that, you know, I think extended litigation maybe does more good psychologically and emotionally to a person than just getting in and out quickly. And I mean, that's really the norm in the legal profession. You think you're doing a favor to a person by getting them in and out of the litigation quickly because of some of the discomfort that can come with it.
And how long of a period was this documentary set?
The spring into the fall, so about 6 to 8 months.
6 to 8 months?
Yeah, yeah. And just to add something to what you said, you know, the video that you saw in the trailer of Hodgson Marshall, that was videotaped by Rod before Marshall died for another case. And that video was hidden from the public. It's a very powerful video, but it's hidden from the public because it was evidence in other cases that settled, and so it's sealed in a way. Until it's actually shown in public court, you can't show it publicly. And so this is an example of one thing, of seeing a priest who actually admits to what he did. It's incredibly powerful. And we couldn't touch it until it was shown in a courtroom. But how long ago was that done? How many times did you use that video privately? I'm just asking you, Rob. I don't know.
Well, I know he died in
2015.
15.
Yeah.
So I mean, that video was at least in my office, quietly in some filing cabinet for 4 years before we pulled it out to use it in Rod's
So you think how many other
case.
videos might be out there of other priests who or other, people who admitted to it? And so, I mean, the going public allowed not only your story to be told, but also this other evidence to come out, which was really very powerful.
Well, there's a scene, talking about the documentary, there's a scene in the film, Rod, when you go back to the school where Father Marshall taught you. What was it like to walk through that hallway again?
Well, it wasn't the hallway so much, but it was the staircases, because the staircases were exactly the same as when I was at school. I mean, the same tiles, the same windows, the same mezzanine type stairs, everything was exactly the same. So that brought me right back to being back at school, no question. And so what happens is that you go into that same mental state that you had when you were at school. And for me, it was always being in a position where I'm thinking, how can I get out of here? How can I flee? And so that's exactly how I felt when I was there.
And for Patrick, in the film, there's a scene of you standing in front of the church, and you're holding a sign.
Yes.
What's on the sign?
It was a quote from Pope Francis, where he was recently speaking specifically about clerical sexual abuse, and then I had my own quote below it. So it was I kind of tried to connect the two. So to encourage people who are seeing it to say, hey, this is what the Pope's directing us as good Catholics to embrace people who've suffered from this. And then I had my quote kind of inviting them to do so. And yet it didn't seem to have much impact on most people.
Well, even putting yourself out there in that visible spot, holding the sign, it was a very vulnerable position for you to be in. Why did you decide to do that? What was your hope in doing that?
I think one thing people don't realize when they see stories or read stories about victims of clerical sexual abuse is that it's not necessarily some stranger. It could be the person in line at the store next to you. It could be your own brother or sister. It could be your spouse. And you may not know. So what I wanted to do was put a face to the story for people and allow them that opportunity to interact. It's much more powerful to stand beside someone and say, tell me your story, than to just turn on the television or pick up a newspaper and read about some stranger's story.
Well, you've watched the documentary now a few times now at different festivals, and you've been able to see the reaction from the crowd. What was it like for you to be in those audiences and to see the reaction, Rod?
Well, Rob was talking about cathartic effect, and that's where a lot of the cathartic effect for me has come. Because, as I say, I always believed that I was the only one. And every time we have one of these showings, after the showing, after the question period, people come up to me and share their story of sexual abuse. And so it's just so widespread in this society. It's just... It's unbelievable. And it's not unbelievable if you think of, when something like this happens, there's a tremendous amount of shame associated with the victim. And that's not where the shame should be. It should be with the predator. But in our society, that's how it settles. And so people are find it very difficult to come forward and to speak about it.
Why do you think it's so lopsided? Why do you think that it's the victims that feel the shame and then the others don't?
Well, it's because of the power imbalance. The victims are children, so they don't have much power. And the perpetrators are always people who are in positions of authority. And so they are the ones who are able to command respect and are able to say, oh, that's nonsense and all the rest of it. And in my case, as with so many, when it's the Catholic Church that's involved, your whole family and social network have been indoctrinated with the idea that, priests can do no wrong, that they are above the normal people, they're anointed and they're special. And well, when all of that is added in, how can a child go against that?
You blame yourself.
Exactly.
And Patrick, what was it like for you to be in those audiences and to see the crowd's reaction?
Well, it was a fantastic experience to see people come out and either be there to support victims or to learn the truth. That's really important for me in the film. And like Rod said, people would come up to me afterwards and tell their own stories. And I had people come up to me and say, he wasn't just abusing boys, he was abusing girls as well. And to give them that small moment to, maybe they haven't confided in anyone, and if they could confide in me, that was really powerful. I had people come up to me and saying that I was a hero, and I don't see it that way. I just think we're all in this together. All these victims need to get the message out, and everyone has a different path to do that. I've taken the path of the film and criminal convictions. Rod's taken a fabulous civil suit all the way through. Everyone can do a part, large or small, but it needs to be talked about, and the festivals are really helping to do that.
But it does take a lot of courage to speak up. I hope you know that. To put yourself out there, to stand in front of the church, to make yourself vulnerable. What keeps you moving?
Justice and protection of children are the things that come to mind for me. I will keep talking about this. There's a scene in the film where I just say I'm not going to stop because the abuse doesn't stop and the cover-up doesn't stop. So everyone here today is about exposing that, and until the church is ready to really, really, truly come clean on it, then we're all going to keep talking.
And Matt and Cornelia, we reached out to the Basilian Fathers, the Catholic order Father Hodgson Marshall was part of, to tell them we'll be having this discussion. We asked if they'd like to offer a statement, but our request was declined. However, you interviewed Father David Kotulski of the order for the documentary. How did you convince him to be a part of this?
Well, I'm a freelance filmmaker, so I had a relationship with the Basilians in that I made a history film for them 10 years ago, I think it was. And so when this case came up and I started to follow Rob and Rod and Patrick, I knew that the Basilians were involved, but I didn't reach out to them yet. But we filmed the entire case. It was a 3-week-long case, and me and Cornelia and our crew, we filmed all behind the scenes of what these guys were working on. And then after the decision came down from the jury, we approached the Basilians and Father David Kotulski, and he's the spokesperson. And I sat behind him in court for 3 weeks, and I was curious about what he had to say. I mean, he's a priest, and I'm sure he didn't enter the seminary or the priesthood to become the spokesperson for childhood sexual abuse with the church, but that's his job. And so Cornelia and I reached out to him, and we sat down and we had several meetings, and he thought about it for a long time, but I think he wanted to tell his side of the story. So we asked him some hard questions.
Bishop Thomas Dowd, an auxiliary bishop of the Archdiocese of Montreal, was also invited by another victim of clergy sexual abuse to a screening of Pray in Cornwall. This past weekend, Bishop Dowd reflected on that experience, including how it opened an important dialogue that he said he was glad to be a part of. Here's some of what he wrote in the Catholic Register. Survivors of clergy sexual abuse will not be satisfied with platitudes and general reassurances that something is being done, nor should they. As bishops, we need to dig deep. My personal dream is for the church to go beyond being just a safe place for our own children. Abuse happens everywhere, and Catholics have a global presence. We have a unique opportunity to be advocates for all victims of abuse, but it will require us, as bishops and as a church, to continue to learn the hard lessons and to get our own house in order. I wanted to get a reaction from all of you. What do you make of what he wrote and how the church has dealt with victims of abuse up until now? Rob, I'll start with you.
Sounds great. Where's the beef? You know, I want to see action. I'm an advocate, but in a certain sense, I'm also a witness because I've seen what the church has done over the last 16, 17 years. And I can only describe it as embarrassing. So, you know, it's great, and I encourage him to take his long-term view of cleaning up the church house and then cleaning up everyone else's house. That's great. But there's a real mess in their house right now. And I think a lot of his brother bishops don't want to deal with it or are completely blind to it. And he's absolutely right about there needs to be less talk and more action. I think that's paraphrasing what he said. The church almost seems to be waiting people out on this, you know, because they're an institution that thinks in terms of centuries. The amount of progress that has happened on this file in the Catholic Church is very limited, especially here in Canada. So I'm a bit of a doubting Thomas on this, and I'd like to see a lot more substantive change. And the one thing that he nor any other aspect of the church has ever asked or explored is why? Why is this such a problem in the Catholic Church? Celibacy, chastity, maybe? That's where I'd put my money. But nobody's willing to look at that or even question changing that. So they're far away from cleaning their own house before they start looking outwards.
And Patrick?
Well, I don't think that it's necessarily a bad case to put some words out there, because there are some words I want to hear from the church. And those are, yes, we're responsible. Yes, we moved Marshall around for 50, 60 years. Yes, we knew what he was and what he was doing. And shame on us. And they have yet to do that. I do not see them saying, we are responsible, we did it, and we are sorry. They tend to say, we're sorry this happened, we didn't know. It's completely untrue. So yes, there needs to be action, there needs to be change. They need to stop fighting the victims like they fought me, like they fought Rod. But they also need to reflect on their past and speak the truth. And the truth is, they're responsible for it. They did it, and they're refusing to say that.
And Rod?
Well, for me, the biggest thing is that their complete lack of empathy for the victims. And that comes through in everything they do. They immediately run to their lawyers. They they have no concern whatsoever for the unbelievable wreckage that has followed in the path of their behavior. And they think that, well, of course, they've been successful, so of course they believe that they can continue to do this. So the best example was on the Fifth Estate one night ago.
On the CBC?
Yeah, where they this bishop in Vancouver came out and so he said, oh, I'm going to be very progressive. I'm going to look into this sexual abuse. So what does he do? He brings his lawyers in, and they filter through all the priests in his diocese and say, okay, well, this one we'll put out. No, this one we won't. This one we'll put out. And then what do? They take it to a committee that has been hand-chosen by the bishop. And each member of the committee had to write a non-disclosure or sign a non-disclosure phase before they could see what was going on. And then they proceed. Well, these are criminal acts. Why are they being allowed to manage it like this in-house, which is absolute ridiculous? Our legal system should be going in there and taking the evidence of crimes and laying charges accordingly. That's what should be happening. And until that starts happening, we'll never clean up this mess. The Catholic Church has no interest whatsoever in cleaning it up. None.
We only have a few more minutes left, and I want to get a couple more questions into this. But Rob, have we entered the Church's time of reckoning in Canada?
Well, if we are, it's being forced from outside. But I think we are still far away when we compare the United States and what's gone down there. You know, to echo Rod, until we get secular society going in there and taking charge of this, we're not going to have a reckoning. You're not going to have a self-reckoning, not this institution, no.
And Matt, do you hope that this documentary moves that conversation forward?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think it's got to move the conversation forward. I think that, you know, when people watch this, it gets people talking. But, you know, I'm hoping for more change than just words, and that's what I'm hearing right now. So I'm looking for, I mean, you know, we're, as filmmakers, we like want storytellers, and I'd love to hear from a church whistleblower. Like, where is that person? Like, somebody should be talking about this.
And Rod and Patrick, you by no means have to answer this question, but if Father Marshall was still alive today, what, if anything, would you say to him?
I'm not sure I can pick the right words. I would be quite repulsed by him, and I would tell him truly what I thought of him and ask him if he understands the damage that he inflicted across 60 years, because I'm sure he had no idea. He called himself in court. He said, I didn't think I was a monster. He was a monster.
And Rod?
Well, for me, Father Marshall was not the problem. The big problem was the organization behind him that took him from Rochester to Toronto back in 1946, 3 years before I was born, and made him a priest after he'd already been accused of sexual abuse of a minor, and made him a priest, made him a high school teacher, and then set him loose. And then throughout his long career, moved him time after time after time after time, where he could sexually abuse children over and over and over again. So there is the crime. You know, Marshall was a leopard, and he was going to do what he was going to do no matter what. But the setting that leopard free on a population of children, that's where the crime is.
Rob, I'll let you have the last word. What would it take for the church to publish the names of priests who abuse kids?
Well, I think it would take the internal will or the external pressure. You know, most of these dioceses, and I do cases all over Canada, they know who their people are. And they have these lists in one form or another. You know, they can put them out there and do the bold thing and empower victims and provide knowledge to society. Or they can head into the bunker, like the bazillions are doing now with no response to a request for a statement. So the choice is theirs. And, you know, my final comment is I think we need to stop giving them the choice and just force this upon them.
How?
We need to get our prosecutors and our police more interested in the criminal conspiracy than the one little perpetrator. We need to look at the tax regime and all the benefits we give them. We need to really revisit how we treat the Catholic Church in Canada because they have lost the right to be treated special.
That's all the time we have. Thank you all for being here. I know this was not an easy discussion to have, but we do appreciate your time and we appreciate your generosity in sharing your experiences. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario. CPA Ontario is a regulator, an educator, a thought leader, and an advocate. We protect the public. We advance our profession. We guide our CPAs. We are CPA Ontario. And by viewers like you. Thank you.